Previously on agentpalmer.com, 2025 look back, becoming a parent didn't make me any less Palmer. A Canadian so nice, Coupland covered him twice. And can you believe I've been at it to have 6 volumes of one final question? Because we're well on our way to 7 already. This is the Palmer Files, episode 166 with Jason Pilling, who's on the show to discuss his musical origins, as well as some influences and processes. Plus, making music you want to hear, lyrics, poetry, an 8-beat note, and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show.
And because I grew up with it in my house, it didn't occur to me that my dad was an awesome piano player. I actually thought everybody's dad could just play the piano that well. Little did I know that would be my last gig for 15 years. I never wanted to be casual about music. So I think the reason I stopped dead is because I could only be casual about it when I started focusing on being a parent. I think I was a great student of music.
Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 166th episode is Jason Pilling. He's a musician I stumbled across on YouTube, where I didn't at first listen to his music. I actually watched him build an acoustic double bass. We kind of get into that, but first we discuss some of his musical journey before discussing influences, just how hard playing bass can be, lyrics, poetry, contemporary music, a very truncated version of his musical journey, and much, much more. But before we get there, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterward, you can find all related ways to contact Jason and myself in the show notes. You can see all of Jason's stuff at jasonpilling.com. That's Jason, Pilling.com, or look up Jason Pilling or Young Tukes on Spotify or SoundCloud or YouTube. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jason, you are a musician at heart, and I know it wasn't always your, I guess, career as such. But
Correct.
what's the instrument? Where's it start? What's the first? Is it drums? Is it a guitar? Is it a piano?
I guess there's a couple of ways to answer that question. My dad was a music teacher.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up around sort of skilled music.
Could he play everything?
He was a very good piano player. He was one of those guys that could just sit down at the piano and play anything by ear.
That's amazing.
I always remember when I was a kid that people would tell me, "Oh, your dad is such an awesome piano player." And because I grew up with it in my house, it didn't occur to me that my dad was an awesome piano player. I actually thought everybody's dad could just play the piano that well.
Okay.
So people would tell me, "Your dad's an awesome piano player." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? He's just my dad." He's just a guy that plays in my living room. So I always sort of like make jokes with my dad that, you know, he set such a high standard for musicianship that on some level, I never really knew I had any potential, because I was like, well, I'm not even as good as my dad. But, you know, I eventually sort of recovered from that as I, you know, got out and started playing with people. I'm like, oh, actually, I am okay. I can keep up with the other people. I guess I sort of got into it playing bass in high school.
Okay.
My brother once said to me, which I think is totally true, he says, "Yes, we're a family of bass players because we don't really want to be like the star. We're not sort of egotistical people. So we just want to be part of the team that does something cool." So I started playing bass, and then I think I eventually just got into like doing the singer-songwriter thing, like really late high school, early university, because I just, like, I think a lot of people, I felt like I had something to say. So I'm going to say it. Yeah. And then, you know, that's basically how it started. That was, you know, music career version 1.
Well, so I want to talk about bass for a second, because not too long ago, or I guess late last year, I had a drummer on who I made the statement after talking with him, I think on the podcast, although it's a it's a thought I've been harboring for years, is that the rhythm section, whether it be percussion, drums, or bass, we tend to make the best producers, editors, engineers, if we're stepping from playing to behind the scenes, because we're always the backbone anyway. And so everything kind of relies on our foundation, and to step then to behind the producer or behind the screen for editor or whatever, it always seems like I run into more people that were drummers or bassists who are in those positions now than I do like former guitarists or former lead guitarists or former, it just seems like, I don't know, maybe we're always like I hear everything. We have to have a good ear to keep everything together anyway. So it's like, I think this is great. Like, I have this. I know what I'm doing now. I'm sure none of us thought of that when we first picked up the bass, though.
Not at all. I think when I picked up the bass, I had an inferiority complex. My brother was a guitar player, and I think I had like this inferiority complex, like I wasn't good enough to play guitar. So I should start playing bass because it's easier.
By the way, I just want to say, for anyone listening right now, while there are 4 strings, there is
not easier.
No universe in which bass is easier.
Oh, I know. You learn that over time, that playing bass really well, like the difference is like it's a totally different skill. But like I would, the joke is, well, bass players actually play in time and guitar players don't, and you hear every single mistake on bass.
Oh yeah, you do.
And guitarists basically have an elevated art form of slopping over their mistakes. And like the game on bass is to almost like play perfect.
Yeah.
And that's not the game on guitar. So it's like, it's totally a different approach.
Yeah.
It's not easier. Like, because you'll see like high skill guitar players pick up a bass and they just don't have the muscle memory and the skills to play it as well. Like they immediately demonstrate that it's a whole new thing.
I started on, I guess, acoustic, but that was playing by myself. And so then you go like, oh, well, I can get in a band with a bunch of friends, but they need a bass player. So I'm like, all right, I'll pick up the bass. That's fine. Like, I'm not proud. Like, I just want to hang out. I want to play music. Like, I'll pick up the bass. And then it was all bass all the time. I had a guitar that I would fiddle around with. And it's not until much later that I go like, oh wait, I can be totally sloppy on this. And I mean, I fronted a 2-man band in college at one point because we didn't have anybody else. My roommate at the time was a drummer, and I was like, well, I can play guitar. Not well, but like I can play. And I would play and sing. We would just do covers.
Mm-hmm.
And he would play and sing sometimes. And like, I mean, I don't know, just there's a freedom that you have from like, I don't know, no, and I'm not picking on them, but like you can get away with a lot of mistakes playing Green Day. Like just the distortion covers a lot. And I think some of it is the music, but there were other things I played where I was like, this is passable. Whereas like if I was playing in a trio or a quartet, and we were covering something, I remember in one of the early cover bands, we covered Stairway to Heaven, and on bass, you're basically playing the root note in most of that song.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you do has to, like you, like it's that perfection you're talking about. Anything you do that's not quite right will stand out like a very sore thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I guess, where, that's kind of where that's the height of it for me, was in that cover band. I never really got any further than just playing with friends.
Yeah. Like I remember playing in my pre-pandemic band, because everybody had a pre-pandemic band because all bands broke up during pandemic.
Yeah, you couldn't get together. Yeah.
So in my pre-pandemic band, I played bass, and it was like a proggy band. And I remember there was this one song where I had to play like basically a note that would last 8 beats, and then, another note that would last 8 beats. But it was just the nature of the song that it was so delicate how I hit the transient on that, because if I hit it too hard, it wouldn't suit the song. The song was like a very soft song, and it was like building like this really soft glow. And so I had to hit a note hard enough to get it to ring for 8 beats, but not so hard that it like went bang in the middle of this nice, soft thing that was building up. And I often tell that story. It was like, that was one of the hardest things I've ever played on bass, was playing a single note for 8 beats.
No, it makes sense. I do want to, let's go back for a second though, before I forget. So you pick up the bass to play with people, or just to pick it up?
Well, I just played it, and I picked it up, and I played it, against Guns N' Roses records for a while. And this is one of my regrets, is that I didn't join any high school bands. I didn't join a band, and like I'd played a lot. I was quite a good bass player before I joined a band.
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm surprised nobody just saw you. I mean, did you keep it quiet that you were playing bass? Is that what it was? Because I felt like
it's because I'm an introverted nerd.
Like every other bass player. I don't like
kind of. Yeah, I just didn't know the people. I would have gladly joined a band with my friends, but my friends didn't play music.
Okay.
And I just didn't hang around with the right people to get in contact with the situation where it was like, yeah, you need to come play with us.
Look, I don't say this because where you're from, but I mean, the time frame you're talking about, I mean, Rush would have been pretty big, and you need a bass player to cover Rush.
Yeah, that's kind of true, I guess. But it was also, by the time I'm playing all this stuff, it's just kind of like pre-Nirvana.
Okay.
And I really wasn't terribly interested in hair metal. I kind of didn't like it, and I wasn't really quite sure what to do with popular music in the late 80s. I really wasn't into it. And that was another thing that kind of affected my music career, I think, because I kind of really rejected popular music in the late 80s. And I think I was suspicious of Nirvana when they came out, and when grunge kind of came out, like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden came out, but I do like them all now. I think it took me a few years to sort of believe it, that, they were much more interesting lyrically from my point of view, right? As opposed to
musically, sonically.
Well, no, it's just like the Bon Jovis and the Poisons and all of those ones in the late 80s, and to some degree Guns N' Roses. Their lyrics were not interesting to me. They were basically about getting laid,
getting drunk, getting laid, doing drugs.
Yeah, and I wasn't into any of that. So I was like, well, I guess music's not for me, because I'm not into that stuff. So I don't want to sing songs about that. And then when Nirvana came out, and it started to be more thinking about how you felt about yourself in the context of the world. And I was like, at first I was just like rejecting it, because I just rejected all music, and I was just like a stupid teenager. But I should have latched on to Nirvana immediately. And it was kind of too bad that they called it Smells Like Teen Spirit, because I sniffed that one out right away. I'm like, they're making fun of us. So I'm not going to be a fan of that.
So what were you listening to? Because I hear you, maybe more so than I'd like to admit, because I I'm just slightly younger than you that I can make this statement, which is I did buy into a bit of the hair metal. But it was before my time, right? So I was coming up just post grunge, because those years make a huge difference in the popular music of the time. And I was always looking backwards. So I also missed grunge as it happened because I was looking past it and I was looking into the 70s and 80s more than what was happening at the time. And it's not until, oh God, I'm post millennium basically that I start looking back and going like, oh, but I think I like grunge too.
I think that there were some bands that maybe started to, I guess, resonate a little bit more. They still weren't like a really great fit. I remember one of the first bands I discovered sort of in that sort of rock area, but they weren't hair metal. It was a band called Drivin' and Cryin', which they were like mildly popular. They were not big. I don't know if that reference works, but their lyrics were just much more interesting to me. It was immediate like, oh, this guy is not singing about those things. And another band is a Canadian band, so I'm sure you wouldn't know it. They were called 13 Engines.
Okay.
And they had like math references in their songs. And their first album was called Perpetual Motion Machine. And it's like they were doing hard rock, but their lyrics were very introspective. It was like folk lyrics with hard rock.
So did you like Rush then? Because
I didn't like Rush.
Okay, because I mean I'm just thinking like lyrically, I know that's in a sense.
I probably would have liked Rush lyrics, and some of my friends really liked Rush, but I was never into like that sort of like weird shit. Like honestly, I still listen to like, the Poison, and I quite like Guns N' Roses because musically they're just super talented people.
Yeah,
like,
it's not a super group as we would call it, but like it feels like
they're a bit of a
what Duff does on bass and what Slash does on guitar, and when Izzy shows up or Gilby or whoever's doing rhythm, like just had it. I know people can love or hate Axl's voice, but like for that music that worked, and it
and he was also, and Axl Rose was also reasonably poetic. Like there were a lot of songs where I could appreciate the poetry of them, even if I didn't really like what the lyrics were saying. But that's why I was referring to those other band, the 13 Engines and the Drivin' and Cryin'. That's when it sort of came together for me. And then, this is all in the rock area, but to kind of like jump ahead a little bit, there's a Canadian artist called Bob Wiseman, who nobody's heard of Bob Wiseman.
Okay.
He's tiny. Like he sometimes runs the open mic now that I go to. But he did pretty well because he was a founding member of Blue Rodeo, which many people have heard of.
Yeah.
So and he's actually going for I think he just defended his PhD. Like he's basically a professor now. He's a very interesting, cool guy.
It's it's that Brian May kind of PhD track. Like, wait a minute, wait. Why are these rock stars going to school? Like, why are these rock stars getting letters after their name that say PhD? What's going on?
Yeah. So he wrote the music that kind of hit me as like the most human music that I'd ever heard up until that point. And it was like a little bit of a lightning bolt for me. It's like, oh, you can write music about this kind of stuff.
Okay. And did you? Like, is that...
I think that was, sort of what I started to try to do. And another one that, and this is all like after high school, right? After the grunge revolution, this is into like the mid 90s, late 90s when I'm in university. And another one that was like became a big influence was Stephen Fearing, which is another Canadian that nobody knows outside of Canada, but he's a fingerstyle guitarist who writes pretty interesting lyrics from my point of view, but also layers it over, like not just a strum.
Okay.
But he is a top tier acoustic fingerstyle guitar player as well.
Okay.
So like he's layering these lyrics on top of guitar work that makes your jaw drop at the same time. And I'm like, wow, he's doing that at the same time. And he's a good singer. So like these are the people who kind of influenced me a lot more. Sarah Harmer was another one.
Do you then just
Um,
put down the bass and pick up an acoustic guitar
yeah,
and get
this is basically at which point I put down the bass and
Okay.
I'm playing acoustic guitar now because I'm much more into that stuff. I've kind of moved past my rock and roll phase, and I still listen to it. I don't listen to any hair metal anymore, except some Van Halen because the guitar work's fantastic, right? But Bon Jovi and Poison are dead to me.
So do you go back further? Do you check out like Lightfoot and Dylan and um
I like early Dylan. I feel like there was a Dylan phase early, but it's before my time. And this is one thing that I've noticed about me in particular. I'm really big on contemporary lyrics.
Okay.
I'm not really big on nostalgic stuff.
Okay.
So like I go back and I can listen to old Dylan and I appreciate the poetry of it, but he's speaking to a time that is 30 years before any consciousness I had.
Yeah.
So I want to listen to the people who are talking about stuff today. Like who's the best lyricists of my time is like Gord Downie,
Yep.
Amy Mann, Annie DeFranco, Fiona Apple, Andrew Bird. Like these are the lyricists that I really enjoy, and they're talking about stuff today. I mean, at least
At the
stuff
time. Yeah.
well, the things that are happening today are in their lyrics.
Yeah.
Right? They're reacting to current events, and I for whatever reason, that's a big deal for me, and like I said, I know it's not a big deal for everybody.
Well, I enjoy hearing you say that because when I co-hosted Our Liner Notes, I would always joke with the main host, Chris Meyer, because Chris was a music guy, not so much a lyric guy. Like just not. He's that, and I used to pick on him for it, but I understand it. He's a music guy. That's fine, and I straddled the line a bit. Like I enjoy music, but I enjoy lyrics, so I'm a little bit both. Right, but I think that I never gave the weight to my contemporariness, I guess, as a word, that you are, but I can understand why that would be important, especially to, I think you may have been able to convert me 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, oh, but these guys are talking about what's going on now, but that was never a conversation musically that was around. Nobody was talking about now or the music of now. Nobody framed it in the way you just have. And I think that's important because while I have gone back and I've done my own research of like listening to all of Dylan's albums and listening to all the Stones albums and listening to any number of bands all the way through, because I want to hear how they grew and what changed. Because obviously I'm a curious person, and that education of from one album to the next, maybe it's a small difference, but like Dylan and the Stones have changed so much that they've almost come back to themselves in a way, but you have to listen to all of it. You can't cherry pick. You can't skip an album here and there. Like there's a progression, and I like learning that, but oh my God, to find out what's going on today, because I'm fairly far removed from what I would say is contemporary music, much as I like music. I'd have to write it myself, I feel.
Well, I participate in the, the music community, and something that I noticed like in the last year that really became very obvious is that everybody was suddenly doing a protest song.
But it's, you know what? I kind of like it. Don't you? I mean,
I liked that. I was in there with him, but it was interesting to me that everybody just kind of like joined into the same instinct that they just,
I had enough.
and yeah, and I enjoyed listening to some of them because I felt like, oh, they're being inspired by the same events as me right now, and it's speaking to me, and it's something I care about, and I feel it right now. And I know that sometimes you could go back to some song from the 70s and see the parallels and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll listen to, songs from the 70s, especially like Stevie Wonder had some great social commentary songs that you feel like you're transported back to that. But that is a different thing for me. Like, I appreciate it on a completely different level, but I want to spend time thinking about the future, or the present and the future, I guess. But like something like, a famous song like, Gaga's Born This Way. That's not a 70s song.
No.
Right? There's no way she could have wrote that in the 70s and it been popular. She would have been accused of so many things and thrown away for a song that is now like a huge anthem for people.
Yeah, we have, I guess, in a weird way, for as far as we've come, we haven't really gone that far. I'm just excited that people are writing protest anthems because, my parents grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, and they had things to protest and they had music to go along with it. And it's not like there haven't been protests and things to protest in the 80s and 90s and early aughts and now.
Yeah.
It's just that we never had anyone pick up the closest we've come, other than the mass outpouring of some of those songs now, is Green Day's American Idiot. I
think that was a famous one. And I guess it was always there. I guess it just wasn't popular.
That's true.
I would argue like someone like Bob Wiseman, I mentioned before, he's been writing protest songs for 30 years and they're very contemporary. Like if you listen to them, I'm not going to he's not like everything from ripped straight from the headlines or anything like that, but it feels very contemporary. And sometimes it is straight from the headlines, but that's Bob Wiseman. And, that's one of the things I love about him. But
that's when I was introduced to the hip, that's one of the things that I noticed was this is a band writing about, Gord specifically, but like this is about, this album came out in 98, whatever. Like this is about 1998. That's what this is about. This isn't about, some of it's about the future, but like this is about now. Which to me, having spent the majority of my life without the hip, like listening to it in hindsight going like, wow, I think REM might be the closest I have to somebody writing about now, within my old sphere.
Yeah, I think they probably did it as well. I noticed, like, for example, the hip being a good example. A lot of like hip were huge in Canada, right? But a lot of people kind of stopped listening at some point. Like they stopped listening after Ahead by a Century was a massive domestic hit here, right? Because the way I view it is like Gord Downie he just kept writing about what was going on in his life, and he started writing about his kids, and he started writing about his wife, and like, in a very tender, beautiful way. And, and I look back on and I say, if you were the right age, you could just grow up with the hip.
Okay, yeah.
And he would be writing about whatever was going on in your life.
You would have a wife. You would have kids. you would absolutely relate to these things in the moment, not necessarily have to wait and rediscover an album by the when you finally get married or when you finally have kids.
Yeah, and I'm almost the perfect age. Like, the hip were popular in the early 80s, so he's roughly 10 to 15 years older than me. And I did a big catch up because I got married at 24 and I had a kid by 27. So I don't know how old Gord Downey's kids are, but they're probably not much older than mine. But that was what was so beautiful about later hip to me. I wanted those songs. And I was seeking out that kind of music, like desperately.
So I have to interject. So you're capable, I know we're skipping ahead, but that's fine. You're capable of playing, and you've probably written, and look, we've all written bad stuff and we've all written good stuff. And we're our own worst critics. So ignore that part for a moment. But if you're searching for this, is there a reason you're not just writing it?
That's exactly what my motivation became.
Okay.
I stopped playing music, not really by plan, but when my daughter was born, it's just, life gets in the way. And I kind of stopped actively pursuing music. My daughter was actually born like the day before my last solo gig. She came early. and so like we're at the hospital and my daughter is born and my wife's sitting there in a hospital bed. She's like, "You can play the gig. Go play the gig."
She knows it's your last one for a while.
Well, I don't know that either of us really knew, but
okay.
but my mother-in-law was there. So like my wife was sort of taken care of and there wasn't necessarily anything I had to do. So anyway, I went and I played the gig. Little did I know that would be my last gig for 15 years. I thought I'd be back at it in, I don't know, a few months. But, I like to think that I'm a responsible parent. Like, any parent that's tried to do it, it's just like, it becomes the thing that you think about, and you no longer have the mental energy to be. I never wanted to be casual about music.
Okay.
So I think the reason I stopped dead is because I could only be casual about it when I started focusing on being a parent. And then basically this is all fast forward, once your kid gets to about 13 or 14, and you no longer have to drive them around and they want to get somewhere, you say, "Here's your bus pass." Suddenly I had free time again. And this whole time I'd been, trying to consume music, but this started to creep in that I felt like music is no longer speaking to me. I'm desperate for music that speaks to my life. And it was somewhere around, when my daughter was I just have the one kid, but, my daughter's a teenager, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to make an album about, working in an office.
Okay.
Because that's my life. And so that's what I did. And that kind of rekindled it. Like I'd never had a DAW before. I was just like one of those guys that would just like, everything was live off the floor kind of thing.
Okay.
In my version 1 of my career. But when I came back to version 2, it's just like, oh, there's a DAW now. Wow, you can do all these crazy things with samples and synths. This is amazing. I love this. And it's sort of self-produced an album and kind of learned the new craft.
Now
making that album.
Look, we're gonna jump all over the place, but when you decide, all right, I have some free time, I'm gonna make an album. Did you have any, awareness of actually editing or recording or, any, or even just, you hadn't written songs in a while. You have to dust, the pen off and get the paper back out, what are you prepared for, or do you know what you're getting into, or is this just, I want to make an album, I'm going to leap and I'll fall where I fall?
Well, I'd made a song up until that point.
Okay.
Right? Like I had this silly song. I called it Milk. And it was from my daughter's perspective. And the chorus was, I want milk.
Okay.
And so I'd sort of self-produced that song. And so I sort of knew the process of how to make a song.
Okay.
And then I just like that was just sort of silly. But then I kind of got serious. Like, well, what do I want to write about?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be, like I said, I didn't want to be casual about it. I wanted to be sort of serious art about it. And I felt like if I want this, somebody else must want this.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm gonna do this seriously. So I, started writing lyrics. I was kind of bored at work, and I would just like bugger off for my lunch hour and just go sit there and write lyrics for an hour.
All right. So pause for a second. Are you writing lyrics with a melody, or are you just writing lyrics?
I was always very lyrics first. Like the words had to exist on the page before you might think of melodies as you're writing lyrics, but what the song was trying to say
was
always the most important thing to me. So I would write the words first. And I've changed my process a little bit over time, but it's still very lyric driven. It's not purely lyrics first anymore, but at that time it was purely lyrics first.
Now,
everything was written out.
Were you a writer before this?
No. I read a lot.
Okay. I mean, well,
but I wasn't a writer.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, that's I think if you're not reading, you're not going to be like, if you're not reading a lot, then you're just, telling your own story. Like you need to read to build up everything else, just like you need to listen to music to make it.
Yeah. I think I was a great student of music.
Okay.
I listened and carefully analyzed and thought a lot about music for a long time. In that middle period, I was a serious listener.
And how were you getting stuff? Was it radio? Was it friends? Was it the internet? Like, because obviously that's a big period. That's a big, like that, we're talking from, even just going off of your daughter's age, that's like 14, 15 years. But like, that's also, before streaming's really ubiquitous. Apple Music kind of exists.
Napster was a big deal. I went on an absolute crazy binge. Like to me, so I used to be the guy that would go to the library.
Okay.
And get 20 CDs.
And rip them?
No, I would just listen to them.
Okay.
Like just random shit. Oh, that, like, what's this? And I'd skip. Like, I'm not wasting my time. But I'm just like searching for new, interesting music.
Okay.
Constantly, my entire life. So I actually don't remember what I did after Napster, because there was some point after Napster where I just said, I don't like this. This is unethical. I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
But for a while, it was just like a kid in a candy store. I was listening to everything. It was like what you can do with streaming now. You can listen to anything you want. Like for that first phase of Napster, I treated it the same way. It's just like, oh, I can listen to anything. Wow, this is amazing. And so I don't actually remember so much what I did afterward. There was also, the fact that I was, still a parent with a full-time job. So I didn't have as much time to explore.
I mean, were you, I don't know, music magazines? Were you checking out blogs to, get suggestions? Or was it just like, I'm hearing what I'm hearing?
Well, I think when Apple Music came out that you could like listen to the first 30 seconds, that was another explosion.
Okay.
Right? You could listen to the first 30 seconds before you had to buy it.
Yep.
And I would do the same thing. I listened to the first 30 seconds of so many songs. And I just started buying shit. Because I was making good money. So I wasn't really worried about the money. It's just like bing, 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 bing. Just gimme more music.
Yeah.
And also felt like, whatever, I'm supporting artists. It's not such a bad thing. So Yeah, I think I've always been sort of a voracious appetite. I had one friend who I think was a really important source. He was the guy that read all the Pitchfork articles, the top 10 lists, and he was a serious collector of music. So shout out to Kelly if he
Okay.
hears this. He was an important part of keeping my discovery mode alive because he was into pop music and I was never into pop music.
Okay. Yeah, we all. I'm gonna say it because you just painted the picture. Like you. If you want to be fully formed and not have your music education fall off a cliff, you need a Kelly. You absolutely need someone, and even if it's not pop music, even if it's just new to you, you need someone who's going to continue to introduce new to you stuff in some capacity.
Yeah, and my brothers are also actually pretty important for that.
Okay.
My one of my younger brothers has never had a normal job in his life. And he's been one of those guys. It's just like a voracious appetite for new, interesting things. And so he would introduce me to a lot of things. And my older brother has always had great taste in music. So I constantly had like interesting music thrown at me by those guys as well. So I guess, there's 3 or 4 people in my life that are, a serious source of, new, interesting music. Because I got to tell you, when you work in finance, is where I worked, it's a bit of a dead zone.
Well, yeah. How much music can you listen to when you're in a meeting, right? Like, I mean, there's an amount of time that you have where you may be on your own in your, I'm guessing, cubicle.
Yeah, but it's also just like there were obviously people like me in finance because I was there, and there was a small minority of people like me who were sort of like the intellectually curious part. But like the jokes about guys that works at banks, there's a certain amount of truth to
Truth.
it.
Okay.
They're not, a lot of them are not intellectually curious people.
Okay.
They can be very talented and they can be very smart at their thing, but it's not intellectual curiosity.
So
Um,
you've been slowly, even throughout your youth, and as all these people around you, you've been keeping your musical palette, I guess, spinning, and it's always kind of getting refilled in some small capacity here and there.
yep.
So you're ready to write an album. Are you taking, have like, do you know what it sounds like before you even start writing?
No, because this was me with a DAW. And I mean, I don't know how many of your listeners know DAW.
Yeah,
DAW.
yeah,
It's the thing that you use to build songs
yeah. It's the
with a
editor.
computer.
Yeah.
It's yeah. And so it gave me access to layered production, right? Because when you're writing at home with your guitar, the only sound you have that flows out at any particular time is what you can make right now with you, your voice, your guitar, right?
Yep.
And so your song is built around your guitar. And once you got access to the DAW and I could do layers, suddenly the range of things that I got into kind of exploded because what did I quote I was listening to? I'm basically listening to stuff that's on the edge of jazz.
Okay.
Like that's clearly where my taste was flowing. Or even like prog, like even like Rush stuff, if you wanted to reference that. I still haven't gotten into Rush to this day. but I do respect it. I think that their songs are just a little too long for me.
So without a DAW, would you have still done like a straightforward singer-songwriter acoustic album?
I'm sure I would have.
Okay. This was like you had just decided somewhere in the back of your head, like, all right, I'm doing this.
Yeah. But so that album, called White Collar Melodies, it's like a genre mishmash.
Okay.
It's got hard rock songs. It's got like pretty laid back folky songs. It's got like weird folky songs. And you'll hear folk a lot. I think I identify as indie folk, but I definitely have rock leanings from my, hair metal days.
Do you find that, and I only bring this up because you just defended it as if it needed to be defended, and I don't think it does. I don't know if an album needs a genre. I think that's a music industry thing. Like I like the idea that, I'm going to go to a very specific place, and it's only because it's all I can think of right now. And if you gave me a couple hours, I'd be able to come up with probably a better example. But on Metallica's Reload is a country-ish song called Low Man's Lyric that a bunch of my friends who are big metal heads, when they're picking it Load and Reload as two albums that Metallica cut their hair and sold out on, that's the song that they always pick because it's the acoustic song, and it's not quite as, it doesn't have a solo like say Unforgiven or Nothing Else Matters where it's acoustic. It kind of still has some of that electrical elements. Low Man's Lyric is by far basically a country song that James is singing. And I love the idea that people will take a chance on that. I'm not saying it's my favorite track on the Reload. I haven't listened to Reload in a while, but I like the idea that there's all these hard rock things. And then there's this, I'm not a big fan of country, but I just like that they took a left turn. I don't need it all. I don't need a white bread album. This is the rock album, so everything on it is rock. I don't need that.
That's good because that's what I'm offering. Okay. I've become a little more focused. I think in that case, it was like I had all of this huge range of ideas. And, the other thing to sort of keep in mind is that, I was working in finance, and the truth is I had some money. I had access to tools.
Okay.
So I got them all and I tried them. And so it was like this creative playground for me. Long and McQuaid is like the Canadian music store. It's like the Guitar Center of Canada, except it's way better. Everybody actually likes Long and McQuaid.
Okay.
They're so artist friendly. Great guys. Great policies. Anyway, I just went to Long and McQuaid and I rented everything, brought it home, tried it out. I tried every type of guitar. I tried every type of amp. I tried everything. And some of them is just like stuff I rented ended up on that album. And just mucking around. Like I'd never played with a Rhodes before. It's so fundamental to like pop music, but I'd never played a Rhodes before. I didn't rent a Rhodes, but Rhodes samples really well. So, you get a MIDI controller, you can play Rhodes. So stuff like that. It was just like, oh, this is really cool. I'm going to do this.
So did you print this album? Are you playing all the instruments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I played everything. I mixed it, and I failed to master it. I didn't actually know what mastering was at the time, but so I mixed it.
So, but this was part of the vision. Like I'm going to do this.
Well, I think that even though I had access to money, I chose not to spend it.
Okay.
I said that I told myself that the only way you're going to learn how to do this stuff is to do it the hard way. And that's always been a lesson of my life is do things the hard way and you'll be better off in the long run.
Yeah.
And I think that was absolutely true. I learned so much about music production while I was making that. And when I listen back to it now, I'm like, it's pretty good. I did pretty good for my first album. I would hold up my first self-produced album against anybody else's self-produced album. And I feel like I did pretty good. I could do better now, but I have absolutely no shame about the quality of that music production. I think I mixed it pretty good. I produced it pretty good. There's a lot of crazy ideas on there that I might not do again. But whatever.
Regrets. You took a big swing, right? Like, I mean, you didn't let the pitch go by to keep the metaphor going. Like you took a swing. It doesn't matter what happens. You put action into action, and the result is the result. That's a whole different kind of a thing, but you didn't just go, all right.
Yeah, I think that was when I was doing that, I'd say that was the peak self-confidence of my life.
Where did it go?
I became a musician.
So let me ask then, is there any part of you that wants to go back and, remaster it?
Oh, it's a plan. 10-year anniversary. I've already remixed a few of the songs.
Okay.
I actually did a remake of some of the songs. I made an album that I released last year called Power Down, which refers to going acoustic.
Okay.
So that album, I kind of like doing that now. I kind of like more have themes to the stuff I do now. So Power Down was like, I'm going to do everything acoustic. There are no electric instruments on the album except for the bass, just because it's kind of hard to play acoustic bass, although you can't hear it on the podcast, but that's an acoustic bass behind me there, that stand. But so yeah, it had electric bass, but everything else was acoustic. And so I remade a couple of the songs from that album and kind of reproduced them with whatever wisdom I have now. But I was trying to reestablish myself at the time, kind of like brand wise. And I kind of felt like I need to stop doing rock and roll on my main brand, because I feel like it's just too confusing. Like, coming back to your point about, does an album need to have a genre? Well, it doesn't. But also, if I manage to hook someone in for anything I do, I'd like to not lose them on the next song.
Okay.
Because the very next thing I do is something that they're just not into. So I decided a while ago that I would anything rock and roll, because I still have rock and roll instincts. I published that under a different artist name called Young Tukes.
Okay.
So now my main brand, no more rock and roll.
Now I will say, for everyone who's listening, the acoustic bass that's behind him, if you go on his YouTube channel, it's not just any acoustic bass. You built it. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I started building instruments. Yes. That's part of my like self-producer obsession. I think, playing with MIDI, like when I did that first album, and, you have this, like all of these tools available to you. And then as I grew as a producer and musician, I started to understand the value of having something you could touch.
Okay. Yeah.
And be expressive with. And I know that some people are amazingly expressive with a synth. So I'm not saying that a synth can't do that. But I don't think I was ever really into synths enough. We go back to my core of who I am. It's playing a thing with strings and frets.
Yeah.
Or no frets, because I play fretless instruments now too. But I want to be able to touch it. And I've definitely, I think, been rewarded for that. Is like, so I wanted instruments that I could play and get that expression out of them. So at some point I decided I wanted a bass that I could bow, because I wanted to get that sound that you can only get out of bowing a bass. So I built one, and this is just whatever. It's just my personal history that, my family's also, in addition to being musical, has always been pretty DIY. So I kind of grew up in a DIY culture, small town Saskatchewan. DIY culture. I will often, if I'm trying to explain small town, which I'm sure applies to the US as well as Canada, but you live in a small town, and my explanation is, if you need a plumber in a small town, you get your tools. If you need a plumber in a city, you get your phone.
Yeah, that's fair. That's so I guess, right? Musician, producer, luthier. Or not quite, just amateur luthier at the moment.
I don't sell my instruments,
Okay.
They're for me to play. And they're very playable, and they're high quality from a sound point of view, because I will work my ass off to get them to that state. I will not be satisfied with anything less. But sometimes aesthetically, you can tell, but I don't really care about the aesthetics. I care about what it sounds like and what it feels like to play it. And then I just want to move on to the next thing. So I don't really call myself a luthier. I call myself I call my like larger music brand Make It Fit. And the concept of Make It Fit is you're just focused on the utility of it.
Okay. Doing things the hard way and you'll be better off in the long run. I agree with Jason on this, but I have to add a caveat. Personally, I think this is the proper way to think, especially when it comes to creative projects and passions. But the caveat is that you have to learn from the hard way. You have to learn. That's the unsaid part of Jason's statement. Learning from the hard way is the reason you'll be better off in the long run. Now, you may have noticed that we really didn't talk about Jason's musical journey in a linear way, though we did start at the beginning. Well, fear not. Jason will be back in a few episodes and we'll dive a little deeper into his start, his break, and his return. Until then, listen to the music, listen to the lyrics, or if you're one or the other, pay more attention to the other. You might just find another appreciation for your favorite music or discover something new. Thanks for listening to the Palmer Files, episode 166. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact Jason or myself in the show notes. You can see all of Jason's stuff at jasonpilling.com. That's Jason, Pilling.com. Or look up Jason Pilling or Young Tukes on Spotify or SoundCloud or YouTube. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heitur. Email and comments can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Jason, do you have one final question for me?
So, as an artist, I think that I want to produce art that connects with people.
Yep.
And I'll admit that it's a struggle to try to break through, especially in, saturated social media market. So I guess you've talked to a lot of people, and sort of interesting people. So my question to you is, what do you think people want from sort of the contemporary art that they casually consume, which is kind of what most music is?
Yeah, it's weird because I'm slowly pulling myself into contemporary-ness, I guess. I was 15 years away from anything remotely contemporary for a long time. There's always like some radio hits that just are ubiquitous. They get shown on TV or commercials, or there's just some songs you can't get away from. But I wasn't really watching a lot of TV. I was listening to old music. I was reading old books, and I was watching old TV and old movies for a very long time. And it was maybe only a few years ago, a friend of mine who's a big Swiftie was like, you should just listen to to her stuff. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, yeah, all right. But I'm an in for a penny, in for a pound kind of guy. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just listen to all of her stuff. Like I'll just start at the beginning and go all the way through. And I have, and I made notes. I have a blog, I have a podcast, and I haven't done anything with my Taylor Swift notes. But that got me thinking about, this is when I, in this episode, when I talked about like listening to like all of the Stones and all of Dylan, it came from that Taylor Swift journey, which ended, I don't know, before Tortured Poets. Cause then I listened, and now I just listen to the albums when they come out. But, so I had, after that, I put together a list of, I don't know, 20 artists that are foundational to my musical journey that I either knew of or wanted to know more of, and I listened to them as they were. So like, yeah, the Dylans, the Stones, that's in there, but I'm also listening to them in chronological order as they bounce off of each other. So I hear what happens in 1967, right? I for that list of 20 bands, maybe there's 4 albums that come out in 67. I've listened to all of them in the order that, had I been alive back then, I would have. And so, but a lot of these artists, and that was my first musical journey that ended. And then I started a second one, which I'm in now. Cause I'm also rediscovering my love of the album as a whole. But one of the things that's weird about it is I'm starting to get to a point where like, all right, yeah, but the Stones put out an album in 2025 that I think I did listen to that one, but like there were gaps in contemporary music for these older artists. And now I'm listening to younger artists, and I'm trying to get better at seeing the now. But what I'm discovering most of all is that people enjoy what's popular. It's kind of like candy. It's the popcorn at the movie. Like you'll keep eating it even if it's not good for you because you kind of like it. Like that's fine. To me, that's radio. To me, that's the top 20. That's Billboard. That's whatever whatever Spotify's decided to move to the top. That's what that is. And people will enjoy that. I'm not, that's fine. But I think what people really want, and this is a very specific kind of a thing. People are looking for like a 1700s minstrel who can only do his job if he's got a wealthy patron. An act like where we get the origin of the patron of the arts, right?
Right.
And that patron is important for 2 very specific reasons. And in today's culture, I think everybody's looking for a patron because of what the patron means. One, if I'm your patron, Jason, I'm supporting you in some way. And in today's day, that's not just money. That's social currency. That's me saying, hey, everybody should go listen to Jason's new album, right?
Yep.
But the other side of the patron is that I'm supposed to be promoting you and saying, hey, everybody listen to Jason's album. And people, I think, want a specific individual connection. They don't want me going on. They don't want a Google ad specifically where it's like, oh, his album just comes up anytime you look up rock music. No. They want, well, I'm friends with Agent Palmer and he said I should listen to this Jason guy. I think they want that curated personal thing that you're not going to get from a Spotify, really. I mean, I guess you could follow me and see what I'm listening to. But people are looking for that true patron of the arts who is willing to support it monetarily with social currency, but also turn around and do the word of mouth thing, which I
see that.
That feels like, because that, I'll be honest, that's how it hits me. When
I see that in the artist community, I see it much less outside the artist community because it's hard because you'll have these blinders on, right? And I used to be outside the artist community, and I would sort of, like I referred to long or whatever, sometime earlier in this conversation about it being a bit of a dead zone, which is, there were people that gave me good recommendations there, but most people, they just weren't interested in talking about that kind of stuff. But now I'm in the artist community. It's like constantly talking about what's interesting. And it's just like, so I've lost sight of, I guess, how normal people.
I still think everybody's looking for that one person to be like, hey, I really think you'd like this. And I think that it, as commercialized as it's all gotten, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years ago now. I lost a friend, a long lost friend, basically. He was about 15 years older than me. He was my assistant manager at the first fast food place I worked at. But his story about one very now ubiquitous album is my favorite music story of all time. And that is, he had a friend in high school who came up to him with a tape and said, you need to listen to this album. This album is absolutely amazing. And it was 1987, and it was Appetite for Destruction. But here's the thing. In 1987, Appetite for Destruction doesn't blow up until 89.
Exactly.
So he's got a friend, he's got a friend who heard it on release and was like, dude, you got to listen to this, and handed him the tape. And I think for all the technology we have, and as, great as it is that I can talk to you over distances and meet people around the world and listen to almost any music ever, deep down, we all still really want somebody to come up and hand us a tape and say, like, you're going to like this.
I actually do kind of agree with that. And I encourage, I think that's been like part of what I've felt personally as I, been hiding in the basement, making music. And on some level, I lost some of the casual social interaction that I used to get in the office. And I really started to feel more deeply that loss of peer interaction. And you just see that coming up over and over again, that people are feeling more and more distant.
Yeah.
And I've started to encourage people, just go to a show. Of course, I have self-serving interest to say just go to a show, but I also kind of believe it. It's just like, just go and be with other people.
Yeah.
And at a community event. It doesn't have to be a show. Just go do a community thing. And that's a very similar concept. It's just like, just give me the tape.